Greetings ladies and gentlefish, and welcome back to Final Fantasy IX. There is not much more of this game left now, and you may be thinking, hang on a minute, last time we were in Memoria, what are you doing back on the Mist Continent? Well, before we finish the game and take on all the strongest bosses, I thought we'd just relax a little bit. One of the things Final Fantasy games tend to have, ever since about Final Fantasy IV, I think it was, are summons of various descriptions. I have got all the summons. I've got Dagger and Eiko in my party, so I tell you what, let's just have a look at the pretty summon sequences, bearing in mind some of them can last a little while. Now also, just to quickly note for anyone who's vaguely curious, generally speaking this game only guarantees you seeing the summon animation for the first time you summon it. In order to see it every time, you have to equip the boost ability, which also boosts the damage output of your summons. So, bear in mind, I've got that equipped on both of the ladies of the hour. So, without further ado, let's just go and find some poor, unsuspecting bad guys on the Mist Continent to blow up with some godlike abilities. And we're going to start off with Eiko's repertoire, as it is slightly smaller and a little less ridiculous. So we're going to kick off with the first summon that Eiko gets. That is Fenrir, the shiny wolf. This does earth damage to all of your opponents. Now that Fenrir didn't do a great deal of much because at the moment my target is floating, which is a little unfortunate, but never mind, let's not worry too much about that. Second up, we have got Carbuncle. Now the effect of this summon varies depending on certain gems that Eiko has equipped, but it's not a damaging ability, it's a buffing ability, and by default it casts Reflect on your entire party. Carbuncle, it's your turn. Next up, we have Phoenix. This does fire damage to all opponents and also revives your entire party if they have been knocked out. Obviously, Eiko actually has to be alive in order to summon this, so it doesn't work if Eiko has been knocked out. Finally for Eiko we have the Medine summon. This is of course due to Eiko's pet Moogle, Mog. This is her strongest summon and does holy damage to all opponents. Time now to switch our attention to Dagger. Now none of her summons are supportive or buffy in any way, they're all there to blow people up. We are going to start off with the first summon you are most likely going to get with her. Also, don't pay too much attention to these MP costs. Dagger has half MP equipped. But first summon you are most likely going to get with her is Ramor, who does thunder damage to all opponents. Next up, we are going to summon Ifrit, who, as the name might suggest to anyone who is aware of mythology, does fire damage to all opponents. Continuing with the elemental theme, we are now going to summon Shiva, who, bizarrely, given the mythology, is actually a woman in pretty much every Final Fantasy game and does ice damage to all opponents. Next up, we are going to go for Atomos, who is a bit of an odd summon and does percentage-based gravity damage against all opponents, which late game means he does an awful lot of damage to non-boss opponents, but against boss opponents basically does nothing. Next up then, we have started looking at the summons that are used in the story by Queen Bran to wreck people's faces. But next up we're actually going to look at a summon that Dagger acquires, or has to acquire, in the story. We have got the big watery serpent Leviathan, who Dagger hopes to use to save her mother before she finds out exactly which summon it is and the fact that it isn't really gonna work. Come on Leviathan, show us what you got. At this point we have now gone through all of the summons, all of the regular summons, I should say, all of the story summons that do elemental damage. So in terms of story summons, that just leaves the King of Dragons himself. We have Bahamut. Leviathan did water damage to all opponents. In case I missed that, Bahamut does non-elemental damage to all opponents. Come on Bahamut, do your thing. 2 summons left to go now, and we have seen Atmos summoned by Queen Bran to destroy a Limblom, or at least damage it. Bahamut summoned by Queen Bran to take out Cujo. May not have actually worked, but that was the idea. Now we have the 2 optional summons. These are ones that are not given to you by the story, and we're going to start off out of these 2 with Odin, summoned by Queen Bran to absolutely nuke Clara. You acquire Odin by getting the Dark Matter in the Trino auction. Odin inflicts death on all opponents. If he doesn't manage to inflict death, he misses, unless you have the Odin's ability equipped, in which case he does some damage instead. The Marlborough survived the attack from Odin. Now that does mean that I can now have Dagger show you her last summon. This is optional in the game, acquired from taking the 2 pumice pieces and fusing them with Hades' synthesis shop into a pumice. This is the summon arc. Now you found, or you came across this guy earlier on in the game. He was a boss in Oilver. Are you ready for the game to go full Gundam on you? Here we go. As Arc unleashes Eternal Darkness, as you might think, the move inflicts dark damage, although slightly disappointingly, of course, it doesn't do max damage to the target. But never mind, let's not worry about that. Let's just finish off this last little cretin. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was all of the summons in the game Final Fantasy IX. Hope you found it vaguely entertaining. Some of them can be quite long, especially Arc there at the end. Anyway, a little interlude for us. Indeed. A little interlude. Oh, we even learned Arc from that particular battle. How apt. Little interlude before we get onto the serious business of kicking Ozma in the face and then completing the game.